discussing cosmology, Dr. Krause.
You're right. We're discussing nonsense.
What you're doing is
nothing useful to say.
What you're doing is you're trying to introduce.
Okay.
Mute him.
All right.
I have nothing to say. He's just intellectual master.
First of all, Dr. Krause, let me thank you for your time. We're approaching the final segments, and now without further ado, please, you and Darth Dawkins can have a brief conversation, and then we will discuss briefly your book, your article that you wrote about the ideological corruption of science, and then we will say goodbye. And thank you so much in advance. Okay, Darth, you there?
I am.
Darth, I can't hear you. I'm having trouble hearing your voice.
I heard him say
I am here. Yeah.
All right, Darth, the floor is yours. The floor is yours, Darth. Please take it away.
Yeah, Dr. Krause, earlier you stated that God is not necessary. You can only make such a statement if and only if you first determine that God does not exist and that he's not ultimate and fundamental, instituting what's possible and impossible on a metaphysical level. How have you rationally justified?
Can I create a universe? No, sorry, I disagree with that completely. I can point out that my pen isn't necessary for that tree to grow. The way explain from fundamental principles and make predictions about how a universe can come into existence without any external guidance from an intelligent being. And if I can, then I can say that the existence of such an intelligent being is not necessary for that to happen. I don't have to ask any questions.
You didn't let me finish my question.
I know I didn't. Okay. I disagree with your premise, so I wanted to.
Okay. The problem here is God, by definition, in such a conversation like this, would be defined as what is ultimate and fundamental, instituting what's possible and impossible. If you say God is not necessary, that to all possibility and impossibility, then that entails that God does not exist. Okay. Now, if you haven't, may I finish, please? May I finish, please? This is the second time you've cut me off. Okay.
Yeah, I have, right? because I disagree with your premise.
Okay, well, why don't you let me finish? Okay.
Okay.
Now, your position, am I correct? It's your position that God does not exist?
How can I? No, my position is that there's no evidence for the existence of an intelligent being, and there's no necessity to understand the universe to have such an intelligent being. Whether such an intelligent being exists, let me finish now. Whether such an intelligent being persists or not is something that is a question that I can't answer.
Okay, so then for you, the existence of God as what is ultimate and fundamental to all possibility, is that still an open question for you?
I don't. I mean, your definition of God is not what my definition of God. So it's a semantic question again. What I say is what's necessary to understand the universe is what we learn about the universe and the empirical laws that govern the universe. It turns out the universe can come into existence based on those empirical laws. Whether there's absolute and necessary, those things are not relevant to me as a scientist. They just aren't questions I come up with.
Okay, so when we talk about God, we're talking about what's ultimate and the creator. Okay, what is metaphysically first and primary, what institutes what's possible and impossible. Okay, so that's how we're defining God.
When you say first, what do you mean first?
That which is ultimate and fundamental.
No, when you say first, what do you mean first? When you say first, you mean before?
I'm saying no. I'm not speaking chronologically. I'm talking about what is fundamental. Why anything is possible. You know, this is about the fourth or fifth time you've interrupted me, Dr. Krause.
Well, maybe we should have this discussion then.
Well, I'm being very polite to you, and you're being very rude to me. I'm simply trying to get a question out. And that's the sixth time you've interrupted me.
Just a minute, Professor Krause. Would you like to continue this conversation?
I want a back and forth. If I have to listen to a tirade, I'm not interested.
I haven't been in a tirade. You have been interrupting me. No, don't cut me off. You know, Darth,
just a minute. Okay, Professor Krause, please go ahead, and Darth will follow.
I was asking you a question. I was asking you a
question.
Okay, Darth, please, just a minute, okay? You have to.
Is he talking to Lawrence Krauss?
Okay, go ahead, Darth. Ask the question.
Yes.
Yo, Brandon. Yes, he is. He is.
interesting. I mean, I'm surprised that he could even, get on with Lawrence Krauss. He's, kind of baller.
Yeah, I think he talked to him once, maybe twice, and Krauss gave up.
Krauss gave up, huh? Yeah, no, that's
Well,
good
sure,
stuff.
he gives his reasons, but he's just tapping out of the philosophical discussion, which is funny because I popped on this random atheist channel this morning, and I don't know if it was a dude or a girl or a mixture of, one of those type of deals. And they were like, I don't want to talk philosophy. And I was thinking, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, then what's the point?
Yeah. Everything that we talk about when we give our opinions, our beliefs, knowledge claims is going to reflect on some philosophy that we hold, right? Inevitably.
I mean, isn't that the definition of philosophy? Is fucking like your worldview? You know what I mean?
Right. A lot of people that do that too. Like, what's a worldview? Define worldview. It's like, were you born yesterday? Your view of the world, the way you see things.
Well, I see a lot of those tactics as just, distraction tactics.
Yeah.
Can you even define that word? Can you tell me what "and" means? Like, I can't believe that I have to answer such a dumbass question. Like, why do we have to spend time on this fucking nonsense? Because you're just evading the point.
Right.
Yeah. It gets it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I can't get anyone to come in here and critique Darth. But we'll see what happens, and you can chime in whenever you want. I'll just let it play.
So let me
something else you want to talk about. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. I just wanted to say, because Will is talking smack about wanting to have a debate with you, and you're running from him and this and that on the whole TCB issue or excuse me, tag issue. And anyhow, and I'm just like, I don't think JG's afraid of you, brother. And as far as like arguing against the tag, Greg Bonson's tag position, I'm not hearing any good rebuttals here. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I've been listening to some other arguments and everything of atheists or non-believers that claim they can, defeat Greg Bonson's argument, but I don't think they're very good arguments.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear it. I try to get people to critique Darth. Tried with Bonson, but you're going to get even less of a turnout with Bonson because Bonson's more articulate and he doesn't have temper tantrums like Darth, so there's less to point out or to push back against. But as far as like Freeman, I'm just not interested in him. I'm not worried about him. He just keeps following me around, really.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you come on my channel when he's there, I'm going to be big on fact checking shit. You know what I mean? I'm not just, I'm not interested in letting people fucking just, throw around a bunch of runaway claims and claim false victories and shit. So if you were to come on there, I'm on your side of the line here. Like, I'm not hearing any good arguments against this. So I'm, and Will, keep saying, well, I can't tell you because, then JG will hear.
Yeah, sure. It's like, it's a fast-paced conversation he tries to have. I've already had the conversation with him in the past. He either doesn't respond or he leaves. He can't get through the entire conversation. It's not really a debate as much as a contrast and comparison of competing worldviews. He has his worldview, I have mine. So if you wanted to do something like that, if you cleared the room and it was just me, you, and Will, and you're moderating, I would just say, whenever he interrupts, put him in the back room, or whenever he refuses to answer a line of questioning, put him in the back room, and you're going to see a very different story play out.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm proposing. Is if you come over on my channel, then I'm gonna Yeah, I'm going to make sure that I catch the little tactics, and I will demand an answer to the questions. And I'm not going to play the fucking, the little runaround game and just keep ask me a question and then keep on talking. So I can't ever answer it shit. So, but yes, I would love to, I think you and Will are very, very skilled debaters and, come up with, I can tell someone's intelligence by the questions they ask. So,
Well, the problem with Will is he doesn't know basic philosophy. So the thing about engaging with Will is it's going to turn into like what he's done in the past is like he had there's a stream of him like interrupting me for 15 minutes straight. I just let him to show his character. He just keeps interrupting. He keeps over talking because he wants me to give him the gospel message. And it's so stupid. And I just eventually leave because it's like, okay, you're really not going to let me talk to other people. You're just going to keep over talking. So he plays the video on like 4 different channels, over the course of a week or two. What's that?
On it, he has 4 different channels?
No, like he played it on Aces. He played it on Bill's. He played it on one of his friends as though it was some victory. And it was just him over talking me and repeating himself. But he'll get like 4 or 5 people to jump on board and make it look like I'm foolish when he's acting like a fool. So what I'm trying to say is like there's no like there's lack of honesty there. There's no integrity.
See, I won't tolerate lack of honesty because then what's the point of us having a discussion?
Right. So it wouldn't be a debate. It would actually just be like a
discussion,
philosophy 101 discussion.
Yep.
And he doesn't want to do that. But he
claims he does.
Well, he wants to debate.
Sure. Well,
what I'm saying is like he doesn't really engage honestly. But if you really want to, and he really wants to, and you guys are over there, if you clear the room and just leave us 3 there and make sure that you time him out when he interrupts and he doesn't answer, I'll try it. But that's really all I want to do.
Yeah, I will absolutely make sure that we're not going to play games here because the point is, what is the truth? That's what if we're going to bother with debates and discussions, then there has to be a point to this rather than your little, these. I'm just so sick of all of the false victory flags that get waved in YouTube land. You know what I mean? When people have a debate and yet walk away as though they both won the debate. I'm not kidding myself that I won the debate against Mark, but I mean, I told Mark before the debate on Mod's channel, here's my argument. If Jesus is God and proved that he's real, then we know evolution is false, and he's the one that set up the debate and decided to call it, is evolution true? I felt that was a little bit, a slightly dishonest move to title the debate after I already told them what I'm going to argue. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I suppose in that case, you bring it up right up front, before you engage. Is that the title we agreed on? Because that's not what I'm really arguing. And I know you had some other techniques you're trying to employ. You were just trying to appeal to him in other ways. You're trying to get the point across that the education system is teaching children that they're mere animals, and that leads into the legal system, and it adopts them into a position where they can't own property and they are owned by governing authorities and so forth. So I see there's a bigger point there, but it's a tricky move to get people to understand all that.
Sure, but that was my intention, is like, look, you guys need to pay attention because you don't understand shit about law and even what's going on with the corporatization of our country through law, because nobody's paying attention to law. Even though every single law and act is, you can go online and read the whole thing today. So they publish it, but nobody ever reads it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Goes
that's what I was trying to point out with the whole atheist crowd, and my whole apology in the front end was absolutely intended to offend all the religious people. Because I believe Jesus is about relationship. Religion
Well,
is Satan's gig.
it's hard to separate the idea, I would say, like, even if you're going to claim that you're a Bible believing King James onlyist, that's still going to fall in the category of religion, which
Sure.
comes from the the root religare, which is to bind. You're still bound by the reality of the King James. So, to say that the Eastern Orthodox are wrong because they wear robes and burn incense, it's not really something that someone's really going to engage in. Like, you can't prove Orthodoxy is wrong because they wear robes, right?
Well, I do. To me, I mean, that is the purpose of this little uniform, is to like subliminally declare authority over somebody. And the Bible is clearly against that. That's why sorry.
Well, I mean, there is going to be levels of authority. Like, you have a Bible believer that's studied, read, and adhere to the content of the Bible that's 80 years old versus a 20-year-old. Like, there's a natural level of authority that occurs within these new.
See, right there, a re-examination put it up. See, that's the, to me, following the word of God is the pure religion. So, but to say, but that's where I'm trying to point out the contrast between, the pure religion is a relationship with God. That's the pure religion. So, but, just declare, that's where I'm trying to, in my verbiage, that's where I'm trying to articulate the distinction between all of this religious nonsense and an actual relationship with God.
Sure.
So that's, and to claim, I have the pure religion would just introduce more problems to me trying to express this concept than it's going to help. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to get into your channel, for
Last night?
or so. No, I'm just saying, like, trying to mentally get into it recently, and I got on there a couple times, but there's just so much
Garbage.
mudslinging going on. I'm not quite sure what you're doing, which is fine. You're doing what you're doing. You're doing whatever you want. I just say
I would like it to be more serious than a bunch of my channel is like a fucking bunch of guys hanging out at a bar with no alcohol involved. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, there may be alcohol involved that you don't know.
Well, on their part, but I'm just saying, like, I feel like we're just sitting in a bar.
Yeah, exactly. But if you want to, sometimes, like, if you get tired of that, especially somebody like Spider, like, I find him just unbearable to listen to. But if you really want to cut to the chase, and he's in there and you're getting tired of him, put you and him in the room, and I'll ask a few questions. And when he starts acting stupid, you just put him in the back. Just the same thing I was saying with Will. These guys are just belligerent. They suppress God. They hate God. And if they just answer a few questions, you can show how they're not really standing on anything. They're just running their mouth. They don't understand basic concepts.
Oh, I've been through it with Spider, dude. It'll tried.
It'll come off differently with somebody else like me, who's not going to put up with him. Maybe you're more charitable to him, and that's fine.
Well, I mean, I care for the dude. I mean, as far as, like, I do. I'm sorry that in my heart, I don't want anybody to go to hell. Even if I don't like the person, I would never wish that upon him. Because, in studying and reading my Bible, through these words, I've seen hell, and I wouldn't want to go there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It's just when you're trying to do a stream and you're running a banner across, like, I forgot exactly what it says, but, like, support the truth or seek the truth or move along type of thing. Like, when you have Spider there just running your mouth, interrupting, like,
and going off on rabbit trails everywhere.
that opposes the truth.
Yeah.
So there's got to be a line there. But again, you know, you're doing things however you want to do them, and that's all good.
I'm working the kinks out, man. I'm getting there and everything. As far as like, you know, I'm not some fuck, you know, never wanted to be a YouTube streamer or anything like that. But as far as like, you know, I just got sick of hanging out on Dave's channel. You got to do it. Everything's Dave's way, and it's just chaos. So Dave said, "Fucking go start your own channel if you think you can do it better." Okay, then I will. Okay.
Yeah, you probably already have more of a gathering than he gets.
Sure, absolutely. But I mean, that's not an impressive victory by any means. You know, so it's not like I'm some fucking, you know, YouTube fucking personality now. But, you know, no. You know, I want to have serious discussions about serious matters. I would like to see, you know, actual Bible believers coming together, agreeing on the same doctrine, and let's just see what fruit is produced when we actually just follow God's instructions. If we just follow it to the T, let's just see. Because it doesn't appear to me that any time in history anybody ever has just simply followed the instructions. And for me, after coming to the Lord and then finally reading the Bible for myself, like I ripped through the whole Bible in like 2 weeks, dude. Couldn't put it down after I got again.
Wow.
Yeah, like I just ripped through the whole thing. Like got done with the Old Testament, and I was like, man, I'm everything that God hates. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I checked all the boxes on everything he hates. Man, this ain't good. So that's why, you know, reading the New Testament was just a real delight. You know what I'm saying? You know, with actually understanding what I'm reading.
The good news.
Yeah, where the, you know, it's like this Bible came to life for me. It wasn't just some book here. This is like, you know, lights were going off and the Lord was showing me all kinds of stuff. And I was just like, whoa, you know what I mean? This is awesome. I've never experienced any kind of drug that can touch when God gives you an aha moment when you're reading his word.
Yes.
Nothing can touch that feeling that just, you know, hate to sound like a pussy, but it made me weep the most cleansing tears I've ever experienced.
Oh, that's good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. So that's where it's, you know, I would love to see, you know, an army of soldiers of the cross kicking ass and taking names and getting rid of all this religious fucking garbage so that non-believers can actually see, you know, these guys are real deal. They're not putting on little religious costumes. They're not putting on an act. These guys are spitting truth, and they're walking the walk. And then that's when people are going to be drawn to Christ, in my opinion. And I would love to even be a part of that. I long to be like, you know, amongst a group of men like that. Like, have you ever seen Any Given Sunday?
Yeah, great movie.
Yeah, you remember that speech that, you know, the little talk he's given with Jamie Foxx at the end of the movie when he's talking. Yeah, where he's like, you know, there's this guy I used to know. He didn't have your talent, but boy, that guy could win games. And one day, you know, I met him in a bar, you know, many years later, and we sat down and had a drink, and he was telling me, you know what I miss the most, more than all of the money, the fame, and all of that, is I just miss being on the field with 12 other men with the same goal in mind, staring down that field. And that, you know what I mean? I'm like, I want that amongst Christians. I want that. That's what I want. And that's where, you know, but for me, I can't be united with anybody but by doctrine.
Right. So I think we have a similarity there, and I think where this moves is into you understanding the presuppositional approach, which is what I focus on anyway, because you are essentially presupposing the King James Bible and presupposing God as the foundation for truth and reality. Correct?
Well, I do believe, God made a promise in the inspired text for purification and preservation, which makes sense because if we don't have the original, epistles that Paul wrote and everybody just made copies upon copies, then, that's how God is preserving his word through a multiplication process. That's why, to me, like in my little brain, when I read Psalms 12:6 and 7, the words of the Lord are pure words as silver. You know what I mean? That's like, because I've been on a mining project, so I know the form of ore, silver ore and, silver oxides and all of that stuff. And it's, to me, that's like through all of the copies. This is like how silver ore went out through the earth, and then, now it needs to be gathered back up, refined back into pure silver. So that's why, and I believe, yes, prophetically, the King James fulfills that to a T. It's, to me, all of the evidence is pointing to right here, combined with Zephaniah 3:8 and 9, a pure language that eliminates the Hebrew and the Greek, because that wouldn't be a singular language. So, this is where, and I think modern English absolutely removes contractual ambiguity better than any language. So, and it just so happens that every nation on the planet has to use English. They have to have people that learn English in order to, have airports, participate in global trade. So God already knew that, yes, this is the language that's going to go out into all the earth to preach the gospel. In my opinion, that's what I see. You know what I'm saying? So are you not King James only?
Well, I don't profess to be King James only, but I'm not against the King James. That's a different discussion, I guess, if you're going to argue that the King James, if we're going to get into theological discussion about the different versions of the Bible, that's not something I've typically done, but I suppose at some point it's something I need to do to refine my position. But I'm more so just focus on the scriptures, the Word of God, and God himself as the starting point of reality. And I've learned, and I continue to learn, how to argue from that standpoint, to establish that standpoint. So this is similar to what Bonson does, and what Darth here does too, is they're trying to ask the unbeliever, where they're coming from, what they've established as truth, what they claim is reality, before they even get started to a discussion.
Sure.
And what ensues when you try that line of questioning is all sorts of antics. So that's why I play this stuff, so people can see that, and be aware that if you're just going to keep making the conversation into something other than what's being asked, the conversation won't move forward. And it's also relevant. I mean, of course it's relevant that if you want to get into a conversation with somebody, you establish the terms, you establish where you're coming from, that you have your worldview and they have theirs, and that's what is going to be discussed. The differences therein.
Yep.
The unbelievers, they'll say everything they can to try to avoid that type of conversation because they're not standing on everything. This is what we aim to point out.
No, I totally agree with that. And that's why, I even just listening to Dr. Lyle is how I even found out about Greg Bonson, because he's like, he's like, Greg Bonson is one of the guys I look up to. I was like, well, fuck, I got to find out about this guy, because Dr. Lyle's a smart motherfucker. You know what I mean? I'm interested to find out who he looks up to. But yeah, and just to be clear on my position, as far as my claim is just if you want to use the other Bibles for study purposes and everything, that's fine. But the authority for doctrine has to be the King James, in my opinion. Because that's what, that's why I'm saying I can show a lot of evidence to point that, God has, declared this the authority here. So that's why, all of these other Bible versions and everything, I mean, if all are valid, then none are authoritative. And that's why the Catholics and Orthodox get to sit there and go, look how unorganized these guys are. Every guy's just interpret it their own way. Look how ridiculous they look. There's 20 to 40,000 different denominations of Protestantism, and yet we're the only true church that's been the same the whole time. That's exactly their deceptive move.
Well, but you see, I noticed even when you're proclaiming the King James, you follow up with your opinion, and that's going to be a weak point in establishing such
Well,
a
I'm only saying,
support.
yeah.
But that's gonna reduce your foundation to an opinion. You see, when you claim it that way. But
because in my heart, I don't feel probable or any of that. I'm fucking positive. But I'm just saying it because I say it like that because I don't want to offend you, because I don't know your position.
No, it wouldn't offend me. It's just a matter of pointing out that you're actually arguing an opinion when you do that. Is that where you want to start?
I get you. See, so from now on, I will not do that anymore.
Well, you also have to learn to be able to establish that. That's part of the reason you're saying that you might be saying it in your opinion, other than trying not to offend people, is because if someone starts saying, well, questions like, well, what evidence do you have that the King James is the only version that's authoritative? When you get questions like that, it seems to me it would be problematic for you.
Well, I mean, not for me. I mean, it is a little difficult when you're dealing with non-believers to even talk about this subject. You know what I mean? Because they don't believe in prophecy and everything anyway, and don't understand it. But when I'm dealing with a fellow Bible believer, at least, then it's a lot easier to establish when I show like Psalms 12, 6 and 7, Zephaniah 3, 8 and 9, and you'll know them by their fruits. Look at the fruits that all of these modern Bible versions have produced in comparison to what the King James has produced. You know what I mean? And just a number of different evidences. It's I like how J. Warner Wallace puts it, that you can't really prove anything, but we can talk about what is probable. If it's highly probable.
Can he prove that the statement "you can't prove anything" is true?
I don't think so.
So what happens then?
As far as, then that's why we got to go on, what is probable?
No, I'm saying he's making a blanket statement or an objective statement about proof. You can't prove anything, right? So you ask about the question itself. And he says, oh, I can't prove that either. So now he's progressing into not being able to prove anything, even the claim he's trying to establish. This is the idea of studying Greg Bonds and of studying presuppositional apologetics, is because there's all sorts of unwarranted claims that are coming in from the unbeliever that are not established. They say like things about morality, who if you want to learn more about the pillar of morality, this guy, Reexamination Show, Patrick, that's where he focuses. He's a great asset to.
No, I like Reexam. I think he doesn't like me because I'm not Calvinist.
But listen, what I'm saying here is, within every claim, there's going to be an established system behind it, and that's what you want to focus on, is how this works, the philosophy that's being carted in here. Like, the unbelievers on your channel are coming from a subjective ethical framework. They think that everything regarding what is right and what is wrong is a subjective condition that they decide. And when you start to hone in on that, it becomes a problem for them in all cases. Because anytime they argue against you and argue against the Bible, you ultimately can ask them, well, is what I'm doing and what I'm believing wrong in any sense that you can make a case, or is it just going to rest on your opinion since you have a subjective ethical system, nothing established as true or objective or absolute? So in all argumentation with the unbeliever, they're resting on their opinion of what they think is right and wrong, and that can change and be molded at any time.
Sure.
This is more damaging than winning a simple argument. This is showing that their position in any argument is going to fall short here.
I love it. Yeah, no, I get it.
That's what it is when you aim to bring every thought captive to Christ, is that you don't have a system, an alternative system to Jesus Christ that's going to overcome Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is truth. Jesus Christ is what we rely on.
Absolutely. Amen. No, I love it.
So do you want to see if we can get through some of this, and you can
Sure.
stop it and comment if you want to.
Sure.
All right.
If my phone rings, I gotta go. Just so you know.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, go ahead. Ask
Okay. Well, first of all, I wasn't on a tirade. I didn't interrupt you, yet you interrupted me the whole time. Now, if you don't determine that, if you haven't determined that God does not exist, then how could you determine whether or not all facts are not related to him? You would first have to determine that God does not in fact exist. Consequently, therefore, nothing could stand in causal relations to him. How did you determine that all facts that you're acquainted with do not stand in causal relations to God without first determining God does not exist? How did you do that, Dr. Krauss?
Well, because I don't claim to know everything. And that's the main point. Science doesn't claim to know the answer like people.
I didn't ask you a scientific question.
Okay, now you're interrupting me.
So you don't like that?
Okay, there's no sense in having this discussion. Thanks.
No, I asked you a legitimate question. You didn't answer.
Okay, Darth,
How
he's
did
not
you
interested. Darth, he's not interested. I'm not interfering. Professor Krauss says he
No,
determined.
I'll answer. Just mute.
Oh, we got an echo. Maybe it's. Did you mute, Brandon? Let me.
Yeah, I'm muted, dude. I already checked that out too, because I just thought maybe it was the video that we're watching. Because I checked all my stuff. It's not me.
Okay, we'll mute up, and then if you could tell us again, Kevin and Patrick, if it's.
Mute him and I'll answer.
Yeah.
Okay. The point is that as I tried to say to you before, I never argued that God doesn't exist. But the question you're asking, it's like saying to me, I cannot describe the universe until I prove that unicorns don't exist.
Okay, you didn't address my
And
question.
I can somehow describe. Hello?
Yeah, please go ahead.
And my point is
In
that
causal relations to God.
If you are arguing that God is necessary for the universe to exist, I can't argue against that claim, but there's no empirical evidence for the claim.
I didn't make an argument to you, Dr. Krauss. Position. Now you
Okay, so
that all of the
Darth, just a minute.
No, it's okay.
Stop muting, Darth. Stop muting, Darth, guys. I promised I
Yeah.
wouldn't.
You promised I wouldn't get muted. Okay.
Okay, just
Now,
okay.
Dr. Krauss.
Darth, just give me a minute, Darth. Give me a minute. Okay. So, Professor, let me try to reorder this. Okay. So, Professor Krauss, the mods, please don't mute Darth as long as he isn't rude. So he wants to ask you a question. Darth, go ahead.
Yeah, Dr. Krauss, I don't believe that you really addressed my question. You talked around it. You stated there's no evidence for God, which is the equivalent of saying that all the facts that you're acquainted with do not stand in causal relations to God. How did you determine that all facts do not necessitate God? Have you determined what is ultimate and fundamental?
I'm saying all the facts I know. I don't know. The whole point of being a scientist is that I don't know all the facts in the universe. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worth being a scientist because there would be nothing to learn. There's more we don't understand about the universe than we do.
You're not addressing the question.
Hold up. But based on everything we know about the universe, we can, just like if I take a ball and throw it in the air, Newton's laws will be sufficient for me to understand its trajectory. I don't have to know about whether the person who threw it is Democrat or Republican.
Yeah,
or
you're not
white
addressing
or
the
black.
question, Dr. Krauss.
Well, then I guess I don't.
You're talking around it. I'll repeat the question. How did you determine that all the facts that you're acquainted with do not necessitate standing in causal relations to God? How did you determine that?
Because the predictions that those facts produce theories which give predictions which give complete explanations.
That does not address the question, Dr. Krauss, at all.
Right, okay? It doesn't, which is
if
one
God
of the
is defined, if God,
so after being asked the same question, 4 or 5 times, having to revert back to it, he finally gives some answer. He says that doesn't address the question, and Krauss says, yeah, it doesn't. So what is happening here? He's just a guy who doesn't know how to answer these questions. He's trying to work around them. That's all he has so far.
God is defined, if God is defined as what is ultimate and fundamental to all possibility and impossibility, and you say all facts do not stand in causal relations to that fundamental thing, God, I want to know, how did you determine that? Can you answer that, please?
Well, the point, yeah. The answer is that you're inventing something, a term, you're making an assumption that something is fundamental and necessary. How do you know?
Oh, so you don't believe that there's anything ultimate or fundamental, sir?
There may not be. I don't know.
Okay, so then if nothing is fundamental or ultimate, you are in a chance world. And if you're in a chance world, anything can happen. And if anything can happen, that destroys intelligibility. Do you believe that chance is ultimate, sir?
Yes.
Okay, well, then you've now destroyed your ability to know anything, because if chance is ultimate.
That's not true. I know a lot more about physics than you.
No, let me explain to you why this.
It's like Krauss isn't even following the conversation. Like his choice of chance being ultimate, he just destroyed himself. He can't have any consistency or coherency in his worldview because it's all
so
chance.
Basically he has no foundation to build anything on based on that statement.
Yeah, his own statement, his own account. That's why it's such an important question, and the reason he keeps resorting back to it and not getting deviated. And Darth will get criticized for having a script and not listening, but all he's doing is he's understanding philosophy better than other people. He's like, if you're not going to answer to what is ultimate, why am I just going to have a conversation with you and ignore that? Like, we're all relying on something that's ultimate. Darth and other believers are calling God ultimate. We want to know what the unbeliever calls ultimate. And you have to play all sorts of games. It's like pulling teeth, but really the answer is their feelings. And they don't want to outright say that because it's embarrassing.
Sure. No, I agree.
This is a problem. If chance is ultimate, then you cannot say what is, can be, or cannot be. It doesn't matter what your predictive success is. Okay, that could be just a cosmic lucky strike.
Now, because you don't understand chance. Physics depends upon chance. It's probabilities. If you know the probability distribution,
that's not what I'm meant by chance.
Let me finish. Quantum mechanics depends upon chance, but it's also deterministic. Quantum mechanics says that there are probabilities that you'll measure the result of some experiment, but the underlying Schrödinger equation is a second-order differential equation whose results are completely deterministic.
That's not how I'm using the word chance.
Well, you better learn how to use
You're arguing against a version of chance that I'm not positing. Okay.
Oh, good.
A chance world. When I say chance is ultimate, I'm not using the word chance the way you just did. Chance is that there is nothing.
That's because you're not a physicist.
Ultimate. Well, I'm not discussing physics with you. I'm discussing metaphysics.
Just a minute.
Let me just finish, okay, Dr. Krauss. When I say chance, I mean there's nothing that is ultimate and fundamental dictating what's possible and impossible. So in your view, your view is then anything is possible, nothing is impossible. Is that your view, Dr. Krauss?
If there's a multiverse, that could be the case. That means
no. I said, do you believe that nothing is impossible?
Do you want my answer or not? Just tell me.
Yeah, I want an answer. Do you believe that nothing is impossible.
like my answer, I don't give a damn.
Okay.
No,
The
the
answer is-
problem is you
Just-
haven't been
just-
addressing
Darth-
my question.
Darth,
Let me
just
give
a minute.
you,
Darth,
let me give you
just a
my
minute.
answer.
Just a
My
second. So,
answer is, if
Professor
there's a
Krauss,
multiverse.
Yeah.
Okay, can I answer or not? As a physicist
Obviously.
would answer.
I'm not asking you a physics question. Okay, I'm asking you: is anything at all impossible?
It's a physics question.
No, it's not. It's a metaphysical question.
Well, that's
sir.
because you don't understand physics.
I'm not a materialist or a monist like you are, sir.
I know, and that's why
Okay,
you spend
good.
all your time.
But you're assuming that I'm a monist or a naturalist. All I want to know from you is anything impossible
Obviously or not, which is
metaphysically?
It's a question that I really don't care about.
Well,
And that's
so
why
you
I
don't have an
decided,
answer
because
to it? So you don't have an answer to the question?
No. It's a question
Okay,
that isn't worth discussing.
then if you can't say that anything is impossible, then you destroy your ability to rationally justify what is, can be, or cannot be, because nothing's impossible.
I may destroy your rational ability, but not my rational.
No, you're not
ability.
understanding the
I
implications,
couldn't-
Dr. Krauss.
thank you
Dr.
for saying
Krauss,
I don't
if
understand. You
nothing
don't
is
understand the
impossible,
multiverse either.
okay, I'm
If
not
there's a
discussing
multiverse-
cosmology. Dr. Krauss, I
Listen,
didn't invoke
Let
cosmology.
me try and
But I'm
explain
pointing
something
out
to
to
you.
you,
Do you want me to
and I got a
explain
word in
something to you
before I
that you
have
don't
to go,
understand?
Dr. Krauss. Dr. Krauss, if nothing on a metaphysical level on the grand scale can or cannot be, because nothing's impossible.
That's
Okay?
right.
You've
And if there's a
destroyed.
multiverse- and if a
We're not
there's a
discussing
multiverse-
cosmology, Dr. Krauss.
You're right. We're discussing nonsense.
What you're doing is
nothing useful to say.
what you're doing is you're trying to introduce.
Okay.
Mute him.
All right.
I have nothing to say.
Okay.
He's just
Okay.
intellectual masturbation.
Okay. Got it. So, Darth, I didn't break my promise. You got it, but Professor Krauss doesn't want to. All right. So, Professor Krauss,
I feel like somebody needs to give Krauss a pat on the back for actually being such a good sport and dealing with that the whole time.
Yeah,
I will praise
that
Krauss
was-
for that personally.
Yeah, you're. Thank you so much for this engagement. I hope that
And let
didn't
me-
come
let
off
me-
too hard on.
No. Look, he's got to be in his bonnet, and he thinks a typical thing. Thinks that philosophy, that those kind of questions, which he doesn't want to know the answer to in terms of physical terms, he can understand in the abstract. And let me just point out, if there's a multiverse, and if there are an infinite number of laws of physics, then there are universes in which anything can happen. We don't live.
So Krauss has no answer. He's trying to posit in if there's a multiverse as some sort of answer.
Yeah, that's what I mean, if there's a multiverse, that's the same in our hearing as it is to, with atheists when I say if Jesus rose from the dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, we don't believe. So that's the problem. But yeah, no, I love this. So did this guy Darth, did he like study under Bonson or something?
Yeah, he studies the same thing that Bonson studies, which is the philosophy of Cornelius Van Til.
Sure. But I mean, did he like actually go to school when Bonson was a professor and everything?
No, I don't think he learned directly under him. Bonson passed away in 95.
Right.
I mean, Darth could have, but I don't have any knowledge of that.
No, so Darth's just a guy that was passionate about this particular subject and learned it. Seems like he's very efficient.
Yeah. I mean, he's got temperament issues, but most of the time it's because people don't understand him or they won't answer his question. So he just has to keep repeating himself and keep bringing.
He does come off as though he's superior, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But he does I get it, though.
Does that get to the truth or falsity of the matter, what we think about Darth's personality?
Exactly. No. Yeah. That's why people get mad at me like, how do you're buddies now with smoking. No, I'm not. Just because he's correct on a particular argument doesn't mean me and him are pals now.
Yeah.
He had a good argument. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
That's
I'm
what,
sorry it came out of Smokey's mouth, but it was a good argument.
yeah, that's what I see in most of these YouTube circles. It's more of like a, a boys club or a popularity contest, you know, who favors who likes who. But if, you know, if you keep the idea of your banner in mind that you have on any stream, it's about the truth of the matter, right? It's not about the individual people, uh, you know, how you feel about them as much as the truth or falsity of all these matters. So if you stay focused there, you know, I think eventually you'll refine your channel and weed out certain people or leave out certain people because they're just and so forth. You know, you figure that stuff out.
I have like really cool people that I could bring onto the show, but I'm not going to bring them into this madhouse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. So you can have like special events and special episodes. Like
well, I mean, you know, I want to have interviews with certain people because there's a lot of people out there that you know, I think are brilliant, and I'm like, why aren't you King James only, man? What's going on? Why are you know, like Dr. Lyle? Even I would love to get him on my show. That, you know, I would love to ask him, why aren't you King James only? Let's talk about this because I'm, you know, it seems to me that this old Bible here is impenetrable doctrinally. I can pick apart doctrine in all of these other versions. You know what I mean? They got big problems, but this one seems to all, you know, all falsities just seem to fall apart on this good old King James Bible, buddy. That's my position, and I'd love to have.
Who are some King James onlyists that you recognize?
As far as that I really like, you mean?
Yeah, anyone in the community or anyone
Like,
outside?
well, I really like Christopher Johnson. Me and thus far, you know, he just has so much material. I have not had the time to go through it, but thus far, I can't find anything that him and I disagree on doctrinally. I haven't found anything yet. Yeah, and his whole presentation that he puts together on the problems with the concordances and lexicons answered some big questions for me as to why we even have all of these doctrinal differences amongst King James only people. That made a lot of sense to me. Because if you're going back to these, you know, going back to the Hebrew and Greek, it seems like they always have to go back to the Hebrew and the Greek to make this bullshit work. You know, whatever bullshit they're slinging that you know, doesn't ring true. You know what I'm saying? And it, you know, and you ain't gonna be able to build your case from a King James Bible. You're gonna have to go to some other version, or you're gonna have to go back to the Hebrew and the Greek. You can't. You won't be able to do it from just the good old King James in English definitions. You know what I'm saying?
You said Christopher Johnson?
Yep, he's got creation. What is this channel called? Is it Liberty Creation Evangelism? And I love the guy too because he's, you know, when we had a Zoom meeting and I was like, thanks for meeting with me, Pastor Johnson. He's like, look, don't call me pastor. And I mean, and I was just doing it because I agree with this position that we're not, you know, I already felt the same way that we are not supposed to be flexing religious authority over one another. When God forms the hierarchy, when you recognize that a man has God-given talent to teach people or to be a preacher, we should all be able to clearly recognize that. And that's where, you know, then, you know, now they're put into a particular position because it's obvious that they're very talented to do so and very effective. But why it's, you know, everybody can still, human beings can still make mistakes. So this is why, you know, everybody is required to know their Bible, so that even if this guy that we all recognized is very talented, but he starts preaching some false doctrine, then we're all going to hear it and we're all going to go, hey, wait a moment. We need to
Yeah.
discuss this. But anyways,
Yeah.
we would be alarmed. But that's where I think that things should happen naturally. Don't, just because you desire to be a teacher, that ain't necessarily, just because you desire to be a bishop, that ain't necessarily a good thing. You might not be qualified to do so.
Right.
Would you agree? I mean, there's just too many guys out here nowadays that think they're a Bible teacher, like Dave, who clearly is not.
Well, yeah, there's people that have great knowledge that may not want to be a teacher, but
Correct.
that's the other side of that. Let me there's like a series of these, so I'm just going to play the next one. I'll be right back.
No, I enjoy it. Yeah,
Okay,
I don't mean to be messing up your flow here. So
no, you're fine. You're fine.
And all universes, however, live in one of them. That's a scientific answer to his question. If he wants a different answer, I can't give it to him. Okay.
All right. So, Professor.
what's AMA?
Where is Dr. Oppie?
I don't know. I'll be right back if you have questions. It's just going to be a minute.
Let's see, Dr. Oppie. He should be.
What do you mean? You haven't been on, bro.
Okay, remember
That
you
was on a few days ago.
invited me here, and I only have till 6:20.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, you ought to make that the first thing, Canadian.
Yeah. All right. So Dr. Oppie should be here in a couple of minutes. How are you, Dr. Oppie? How have you been doing?
I'm fine. Do we want video or as well, or
Video is not required. Video is not required. We just want to make sure, first of all,
we wouldn't be able to do video anyway because the room's too big. Video puts a 25-person limit on the room.
Shay. Okay. So, Dr. Oppie, first of all, I want to make sure you are fine with the event being recorded.
yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. And Dr. Oppie, there's one question I want to ask you. I prefer to ask you in private, but I guess I couldn't get to you. Basically, there is a presuppositionalist apologist who is a friend of mine who wanted to ask you a couple of questions today before the hour Q&A starts. And I don't know how you feel about that, so I didn't actually want to do it without your permission. So how do you feel about that? Do you believe that we should go ahead with something like that?
So when would that happen?
Now.
Yeah, now. That's probably okay.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Brief back and forth, 10 minutes. And if you do not like it or are not interested in it, we do not want to in any way sidetrack or anything. Just say, and it's just 10 minutes. He simply wants to converse with you. He's a big fan of your work and is simply interested in asking a couple of questions, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine.
Okay, so we have your permission to record. I want you to meet a friend of mine. Wait, he just left. He's a very interested in philosophy. So let me just check that. Let me just check that my thing is working. The recording thing. Okay, should be good. All right, so we are ready to begin. Dr. Oppie, we will open with the presuppositionalist apologist who will ask you a couple of questions about God. And then we will move on to a couple of questions related to the philosophy of religion, philosophy of time. Whenever you feel like it, we're more than happy to, if there's any questions you personally do not want to answer or, for any reason do not feel comfortable even accepting, that is totally fine with us. So without any further ado, can we begin?
Sure, let's go.
So Darth, you're up. Let me unmute you. Darth, you're up. Great, Professor Oppie, and please get your word out. Darth.
Hi, Dr. Oppie. Are you the kind of atheist that denies the existence of God as ultimate creator?
I don't think there's any other kind of atheist. I think that atheists deny the existence of all gods.
Okay. How would you ground or establish that an ultimate creator God does not exist?
So I'm not sure whether the words ground and establish are the right ones here. What I think you do is if you're interested in determining what view to accept, you think about the various competing views, and then you try to assess which of the views that's on the table is the best one, and that's the one that you opt for. Whether that counts as grounding or establishing is a whole different question that I'm not particularly interested in.
Okay, so if somebody stopped you on the street and said, God does not, in fact, exist because, how would you answer that?
So it's not like there's a reason that there's something that prevents God from existing. So what I'm going to say about what I believe is this: the causal order is entirely natural. So and you can think of the kind of the causal order, the kind of network that constitutes reality. It's entirely natural. Because it's entirely natural, there's no place for God in it.
Is that
I
a claim?
I can fill this in with kind of more details. I mean, roughly, if you imagine that natural reality is just our universe, then as far as causal stuff goes, our universe is all that.
So Graham Oppie here, he's smuggling in causality into the natural world. And cause and causality is a transcendental category, the very thing that Darth focuses on, the preconditions necessary to have a coherent and meaningful reality. And Oppie is just saying, oh, it's causality is part of nature. So that's what that's commonly known as a smuggle. He's bringing in the transcendental category and applying it to naturalism.
Gotcha. No, makes sense.
There is. Were there a God, God would be the creator of that natural reality, but there's no such thing. There's no reason to believe, at least I find no reason to believe that there is such a being. I think
Are you asserting that the material world, matter and energy, is all there is, and how would you justify that?
I didn't say that it was all there is. What I said was that that's causal reality. There are various disputes in philosophy about whether, for example, there are abstract objects, and if there.
This is another thing that people do. What he's just done is like there's various disputes in philosophy. Like Darth is not trying to ask about what other people and other philosophers think. He's trying to ask what Graham Oppie thinks. So this is a deviation or a rabbit hole that's commonly used. Oh, well, this guy thinks that. And this other guy thinks.
Yeah.
They're abstract objects. They're not part of, they don't enter into causal relations. If you want to say that there are values, presumably values don't enter into causal relations and so on. But as far as the causal stuff goes, that's all there is. In fact, I kind of prefer the view. I think that I'm attracted most to the view that says that actually the natural stuff is all that there is. But there's quite a lot of work that you have to do to explain lots of other stuff.
Is your case that there is no God? Is it inductive, deductive, or abductive?
I'm not sure how we're going to go about putting the case into any of those categories, because those are really categories for one way of thinking about them is that they're categories for describing arguments. Certainly for a deductive case, you would think of that as, okay, so you've got a proof, there's some premises, and you derive a conclusion. If it's inductive, maybe you're thinking that we're not talking about an argument so much as a kind of step of reasoning. But so maybe I should ask you back whether what you've got in mind is, are we thinking that there's a certain kind of argument here whose conclusion is that God exists, and you want to know what sort of argument it is? Or are you thinking you've done some reasoning, and the reasoning involves steps that you want to call deductive or inductive or abductive or whatever? What have you got in mind?
I'm still unclear how you have established the universal negative of atheism, that God does not exist. I haven't heard a clear answer.
So, okay, so what are you asking for when you're asking for me to establish it? You mean I haven't convinced you that it's so?
That's funny how he's turning that into, oh, I haven't convinced you. You know, he's asking you why you're convinced, why you're claiming you're an atheist, dude. He's not asking why he hasn't been convinced of your atheism. He's asking, why have you established yourself as an atheist? How did you get there? It's simply what he's asking. And Graham Oppy is a philosophy professor, so you know he's going into these different lines of thinking. Well, it could be this or that, but you know, we'll see how this plays out here.
So this guy, Professor Joppy or whatever, is a philosophy professor?
Yeah, Graham Oppy. He's pretty well known in the atheist community. And he's obviously established himself as an atheist. So Darth is merely asking, how did you get there? How did you come to that conclusion? And he just doesn't want to answer is what it is.
Sure. I just don't like Jesus.
Yeah, that very well could be the case.
Yeah, I don't like this idea of hell for eternity, so I reject it.
And that's what we move to do, is point out that their fundamental rejection of God or claim of atheism is just based on their current feelings that they're experiencing. It's not based on any true reasoning or any line of argumentation that they can bring forth in a coherent manner.
Yep, absolutely.
Is that what you're looking for? Because I'm kind of not into that project. I'm not interested in that. Right? When I compare the best version of naturalism, the view that I like, and the best version of theism, the view that I like, I think that the best version of naturalism is.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
You know, it's not the truth that I like. I like this truth much better, as though truth is something you can just pick and choose.
Yeah. He did kind of say that. He avoided the question, realizing that Darth is honing in on him and saying, oh, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested. In other words, he's not interested in answering the reasons behind why he calls himself an atheist.
Right.
He doesn't want to do that. He just wants that to be granted and then talk about other things. So he's talking to the wrong guy. You know, he doesn't realize who Darth is. He probably wouldn't have even talked to him if he realized he's going to continue to go down that road with him.
Do you by any chance know if Graham is gay?
Gay? I don't know.
Because that's a big roadblock for a lot of people. Well, I don't like that truth. I love my boyfriend.
Right, and that's a good segue to get into morality.
Sure.
Simpler theory, it's got fewer commitments, and it explains everything that the theistic theory explains. So it's a better theory, and on those grounds, I accept it.
So all he just said there is, like, if I give grounds that I'm going to make up, which is parsimony, it has less explanation needed. I'm going to choose naturalism because it's simpler. It's basically all he said there.
Yeah, no, this truth is the one I like. Then that's not truth at all, dude. That's your feelings. That's what it is.
Truth is not about preference, right?
Now, I also allow that people might judge the case differently. Reasonable people might judge the case differently. That's the way I judge it, and I'm quite happy to fill in lots of details, as I have in some of my books, like The Best Argument Against God, to make the case just to fill in the details. But that's the basic idea.
Well, so far, all I've heard is you are just simply putting forth God does not exist because positing a not God world is an explanation that you like. Have you established it to yourself that a not God world is true and veridical?
So that wasn't what I said. What I said was, if you elaborate theistic.
It was what he said.
I would agree. That's precisely what you said.
Actually, he's just summing up what he said.
Yep.
Yeah.
Theory of the world, elaborate a naturalistic theory of the world, reckon up their commitments, their ontological commitments, their ideological commitments, their theoretical commitments. The naturalist view is simpler. So that's one half.
Yeah.
The other half, when you think about all the things that require explanation, there's nothing that's explained better by the theistic view than the naturalistic view. Put those two.
So he's got what he's calling two halves. The first one is parsimony, saying mine is simpler, so I prefer it. And then he's saying mine is better because it can encapsulate both. The better is also assumed. Like, what is better? What is best? What is the good? These things are not going to be prescriptive on a naturalist view. They're going to be arbitrary. What Graham thinks is good is up to him and him alone. Now, he can get other people to agree, or he can agree with other people. But all he's done is saying, I like what's simpler and I like what is better.
Yeah, that sounds intellectually lazy to me. And you're a professor?
Right.
Things together. What that means is that the naturalistic view is better than the theistic view. Now, you can believe the worse if you want, but my inclination is to believe the better view, and the better view is naturalism. That would be how I see it.
So it would be abduction.
So that's I don't know whether you want to call that abduction or induction or whatever. It's based on consideration of theoretical virtue of worldviews.
Well, okay, so since you believe that God does not exist, and
you say something like it's based on a consideration of a theoretical virtue, he's saying it's based on what I'm calling good and established in my own mind.
Yeah, thank you for translating that, because I was like, what? Anyway.
Yeah, well, that's what's funny about some of this language is it sounds really good, and all he's saying is like, yeah, the theoretical virtue is just something I made up. That the Darth is moving to ask, what is virtue? What is good? What is the good in your worldview? Because you're using them to establish grounds for naturalism, but we haven't even got to the point of establishing virtues and good from your worldview. And Darth knows that you can't do that from a naturalistic worldview. It's just an arbitrary, subjective opinion at best.
you've already agreed that God would be defined as what is ultimate and fundamental to all possibility and impossibility. What in your naturalistic frame of reference would be ultimate and the source of all possibility that is not God that you deem as vertical?
So I'm not sure that we had any prior discussion about what God would be. There's a lot of disagreement amongst theists about how to think about God. If you think about the difference between, say, Ed Faze's conception of God and Richard Swinburne's conception of God, there's daylight between them. On the naturalistic view, on the version that I prefer, I think of all possible worlds as sharing some history with.
So, and I hate that little fucking backdoor maneuver right there. There's so many disagreements amongst the religious. So that's why I chose this naturalist shit. But I mean, that's kind of what I kind of feel like my calling or whatever is I think that the all of the religious darkness has to be dealt with. You know what I mean? And I
People
wish,
chose to abandon the faith because there's too much dissension and disagreement. In other words,
yep.
you're trying to work on those people.
Well, I mean, this is all of this religious garbage is what turns off a lot of very highly intellectual people, and that's what that's what I'm saying as far as like if we just had a group of men committed to just and all agreed on an authority for our doctrine and brought all of our talents and time together and resources together, then I think people would actually see something that would draw them to Christ.
Yeah, I think if you're ultimately driving towards a team of KJV onlyists, that's all well and good. I would say in the meantime, you can start to gather a group of people with different specialties.
Skill set.
You can have a group of Calvinists like Veckel, Jill, and Amicus who are strong on doctrine. You can have somebody like myself and a couple other people who are more into the philosophy, but we're all Bible believers who are presupposing God's word. That's not a bad starting framework for what you're trying to do, I think.
Sure. Even if we have, because Calvinists, we have it's a big issue, but I mean, it's, we have very little disagreements doctrinally. You know what I mean? I just think it's a matter of God's character that's at stake here. I don't know if you're a Calvinist or not, but I mean, are you?
Well, I don't claim any denomination. I claim that I'm a Bible believer, that I presuppose the Word of God and God Himself. I do learn most. I have learned most from Calvinists and Eastern Orthodox, but I don't necessarily claim either one of those denominations. Those are the two groups that I tend to favor, and I know you have a different opinion on that, but that's what I'm saying. There's such a it's in a way, it's like it's hard to find people that agree with you 100%. So
sure,
we don't want to cast out people who are genuine Bible believers that have a slightly different denomination. We can utilize each other and work against the unbelieving masses with that.
So now, I don't want to get off topic, but I am curious to find, like, what do you find appealing about Eastern Orthodox? I mean, like, how could, I just don't understand how they would be able to help you understand the Bible better. I'm slightly puzzled by that.
Well, it's more because I've learned from Eastern Orthodox the way that they speak about theology speaks to me. It resonates with me in ways that are deeper than most other people I listen to. They have a perspective that goes deep into how we interact with God, how we interpret things, how we hold a worldview of our own before we even look at the scriptures, how we have biases and personal references that we engage with while trying to read God's word. And these things influence how we interpret it. And some of the people that I've listened to, like Jay Dyer and Father Deacon Ananias, I just find them to be a great wealth of knowledge. Even though I don't follow the Orthodox tradition or belong to an Eastern Orthodox church, I do give credit that I've learned much from them. And then Calvinists like Dr. Greg Bonson is probably who
Bonson was a Calvinist?
Yeah, that's probably who I've learned most from.
Sure.
So I just don't, I don't want to turn off every denomination.
Sure.
But it's a refining process. It's a journey. I don't think that I want to just float around.
Well, I mean, I'm just curious because I consider you a very intelligent person, and that's why I mean, I definitely I always consider. Can you be wrong here, Brandon? I don't want to be out there preaching no false doctrine. This my Bible says right here, if you don't have the doctrine of Christ, you don't have God. And that concerns me. You know what I mean? Like like I said, I'm not interested. I like that old, bluegrass gospel song. I'm using my Bible as a road map.
Yeah.
That's my
Well, that's
position
kind
right
of yeah,
there.
yeah. That's kind of the idea, you know. There's people around here. Kevin on the has a comment on the screen, and Beckel and Jill and Amicus, yourself. Um, People that I might disagree with or question on certain
Well,
things, but I call the Calvinists my brothers, because
I
what I
call them
want
brothers
to
too, even though me.
people
Sorry.
who start with the Word of God. That's what I'm focused on at this point. Now down the road, I could get more and more refined. I could choose a particular denomination, but at this point, I'm just looking to gather with people who are starting with the Word of God, and whether we're going against an unbeliever or we're in a private circle where we all presuppose the Word of God, and we're trying to hash out, your particular view regarding Calvinism or Eastern Orthodoxy or KJV only. We can do that, but I'm not
Well,
quite that
just
refined
as
yet.
far as if we're all going to sit down and with the goal in mind to put our egos to the side and let's investigate what, because I believe with the right tool, with the Word of God, we can achieve perfect doctrine. It's doable because we have the instruction book. You know what I'm saying? So now if we can all just sit down, put our pride to the side, consider, hey, you could be wrong. So it's good to have your ideas, challenged. So, anyways, we've been the rounds on Calvinism issues. So, Beckel and I, and Amicus and all of them,
Yeah,
and everything.
I just
Yeah.
see too many people divided over those things. People that work well together against unbelievers end up getting divided because of doctrinal differences, and that's something that I
But
don't
I
know.
really believe that if we would have if we were doctrinally aligned perfectly, then we'd have that same kind of love between Jonathan and David. We would have that type of love for each other,
Sure.
and without any static. You know what I'm saying? I would just love to experience that.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Now I've got to take a 15-minute break, so
Yeah,
if you
no,
want,
I actually, I've got to get running too. I do have things to do, but I'm loving this stuff. So,
yeah,
but
yeah, we'll come back to it, and I'll see you around. So
and
if you can make
yeah,
it,
if we
fine.
get Will on, tonight and everything, and if you want to pop in, then we'll get down to business, and I'll get rid of the clowns, and we can get down to it. And I'm not going to allow anybody to sit there and deflect and run, and I'll
Yeah,
call it as I see it. Foul. You're trying to deflect. Answer the question. You know
yeah.
what I mean?
Well, we'll see. I don't think it's going to go very well, but if you want to try it, we can try it. But I wouldn't put too much expectation there. But I will. I'll talk to you soon, man. I got to take a break here, and
Okay.
I'll see you soon. Thanks for coming on, Brad.
Have a
Take care.
good day. Thank you. Bye.
natural world. So if we go back to our pretense that our universe is all there is to causal reality, then every possible world, sorry, my monitor's gone. There we go.
I just want to know
every
what's
possible
ultimate.
world. Well, ultimate in what sense? So I'm about to explain.
What is the source of all
the initial,
possibility and impossibility?
yeah. Well, and again, the initial part of the universe exists of necessity. I mean, that's one way given the simplifications that I've introduced. Being more careful, if there's an initial part of natural reality, then it exists of necessity. If not, all possible worlds actually share some infinite initial part, though different possible worlds diverge from one another, right? So
I mean, I'm not really hearing a clear explanation why God doesn't exist.
What's ultimate is going to turn out to be, if there's an initial part of the universe, that's what will turn out to be ultimate. It exists in every possible world, so it exists of necessity. It couldn't have failed to exist.
Right.
So that would be the ultimate thing.
But you don't believe that God is being ultimate and the source of all possibility. So in order to negate that as a better explanation, you'd have to posit what is ultimate that is not God, thereby vitiating God. What is ultimate, therefore negating God? What would that be, Dr. Appy?
So I'm not sure what, I mean, the way that you're using the terms here, the negating God, on the view that I've got, every possible world starts with the initial state of natural reality, and then you get subsequent states of natural reality.
What's natural reality? What is that?
And that's the universe. Near enough. I mean, that's what.
How would you know? How would you know that, Doc? Why couldn't we have a world where we have God as ultimate in eternity, and then followed by a creation?
So we'll go back.
Have you excluded that?
We'll go back to where this started from. You start by writing down in detail the two theories. So we've got one theory that says there's natural reality. Begins, let's call it the initial singularity. It begins from there. Every possible world begins from the initial singularity, evolves under causal, think of it in accordance with causal.
Do you mean what's ultimate when you say singularity?
Hang on. You're going too fast. It's the first bit, right? Let's start again and don't interrupt so I can get enough of this out.
I'm just not hearing a clear answer.
Just let me start again. Okay. The first thing that you do is you elaborate the competing theories. So we're going to have one theory on which what you've got is natural reality. On the other theory, you're going to have God causing natural reality. Okay, so we're going to think of those as the competing theories. I'm going to think of the initial thing in each theory as necessary. So on the naturalist view, every possible world contains, as far as causal reality is concerned, just the universe, or if it's a more complicated story with a multiverse or whatever, what's that? On the other side, every possible world starts from God, and God makes universes in some possible worlds and not in others. If we compare the two worlds and we ask, for example, why is there anything at all? On the naturalist view, it's going to be, it had to be that the initial singularity, the initial part existed. On the other side, it's going to be, it had to be that God existed. As far as the explanation of why there's something rather than nothing goes, they're on a par. Thinking about the two views, they're both committed to natural reality. One's got this extra thing in it, namely God. But there's nothing that's explained on the theistic view, given the considerations that we're taking into account so far.
Of course there is. It's called the creator-creature distinction.
And so because the naturalistic view is simpler and it explains everything, you should prefer it.
How does it explain everything if you don't have an ultimacy that is identifiable and attestable, that is the source of all?
So I'm not sure what you mean about identifiable and attestable. According to the theory, the initial singularity exists of necessity, and the initial singularity is identifiable. It's identified in the theory, and it's attestable. According to the theory, there's an initial state of natural reality. So I don't see any problem.
Dr. Uppy, are you able to hear me? Okay, so maybe I'll come in and mediate a little bit because this is getting. Darth means something like the PSR when he says.
No, I don't. That's not what I'm talking about. What I want to know from Dr. Oppie, since you don't believe in God, you don't. What is your ultimate reference point to connect any dots of any particulars? Do you have anything that unifies all of the particulars? Do you have anything that is a concrete universal?
What I'm not sure that I understand the question that you're asking me.
So
I want to know if you have an array of particulars, that you hold to in your natural world, what is it of anything at all that's going to unify in a concrete way any of the particulars? Are the particulars unified in any concrete way, or is the unifying only take place as an abstract concept? So how does that world make sense?
So I'm actually kind of mystified by the question. So let me put it this way. According to the picture that I've got, the world is described by the natural and human sciences. And so it's full of things like mobile phones and rulers. I'm just naming things on my desktop, the keys, pencils, human beings, and so on. And they're all complicated particulars.
What imposes any actual unity at all that makes it real as opposed to illusory?
Imposes?
Yeah, is the unity among the diversity of particulars real?
So I'm not sure where this question about illusion came in, right?
No, is unity among diversity real in your world?
If you're asking, if this is a question about universals, right, and whether in your ontology you should have both particulars and universals, my preference is for a kind of nominalism. And so I would prefer not to suppose that there are universals as well. I don't think that the right view about individuals is to suppose that they're somehow aggregates of universals. I think that particulars we're definitely all going to be committed to, and there's a real question about whether you also want to believe in the kind of one over many universals, whatever you want to call it.
So the unity among diversity is not real?
That's not the way that nominalists usually go. So a nominalist will suppose, for example, that suppose I've got a red ball. They'll suppose it's true that the ball is red, but they won't suppose that what makes that true is that there's a universal redness that inheres in the particular, the ball. They'll have a different story to tell. There's a bunch of different philosophical accounts that you can give at this point, besides the realist account.
I'm not understanding.
Sure,
is any unity real in your world, Dr. Oppie?
Time is up now. It's been more than 15 minutes, so we'll have to move on to the AMA. But yeah, Dr. Oppie, answer the question, and then we have to move on in the AMA. Darth.
Unity real? Okay. Is any unity real, and what?
Sure. So unity just means you can count things. So there's dozens of books on the shelf behind me. Of course, unity is real. Each one of them's a single book.
So Dr. Appy, are you able to hear me right now? Is my audio coming in clear?
Yeah.
Okay. We have to move on. Thank you, Darth. We had you for 20 minutes. And I think it's time to move on. Thank you so much, Dr. Appy, for that engagement. I honestly didn't know how it would go because, you know, he's a presuppositionalist. It's a little bit of a new approach, novel approach. So thank you so much.
Hey, Tom Rabbit! I hope you got this for your recording. Hey, YouTube out there. Tom Rabbit likes to record these. Hey, Tom Rabbit!
So I guess we'll move on, and we'll take a couple of questions from Darth Dawkins if he wants to ask a few. This was the apologist I was telling you about. If that's all right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we really jumped in the deep end there. I was expecting some fairly, introductory stuff early on.
Is that okay?
Set out the issues, and get a feel for the overall territory. But no, we went right in the deep end straight away. But that's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah. Darth, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
All right.
Good afternoon, Professor Law. Are you the kind of atheist that denies that God exists as an eternal, ultimate creator?
The kind of atheist that denies that God exists as an ultimate creator. I guess I'm one of those. Yeah.
Okay. So how is it that God doesn't exist?
Sorry? You disappeared.
How is it that? I'm sorry. What?
Sorry. There was a strange glitch. Okay. So why do I deny that God exists? Why am I a strong atheist as opposed to a sort of a weak atheist that merely fails to believe in such a being? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Well, it partly depends on which God you're talking about. So if it's a good God, then I think the evidential problem of evil.
Now, my question doesn't contain that issue. Okay. When I define God, I'm defining God as that which is ultimate, eternal, a mind, and is the source of all possibility and impossibility. Whether or not that God has extended properties doesn't concern me when it comes to the denial of God. So how does that God not exist?
Okay. Well, that's not how everyone understands God.
Well, that's a minimalist definition of God.
Yeah. But then William Lane Craig says that once you've understood God as the greatest conceivable being, then moral perfection gets built in automatically.
Well, I'm just simply defining God in a minimalist way that every atheist would reject. Do you deny that what is fundamental and ultimate to all possibility, and that it is a mind, that does not exist?
Well, that's a much, much weaker claim. And I'm much less bothered by it. And I haven't spent a lot of time arguing against it. I've tended to focus most of my energy.
So then you're not an atheist then. You just disbelieve in many gods.
No, I didn't say that.
So do you disbelieve in all God concepts? Including the one I just gave you?
Yeah, I do disbelieve in all of them. But the reasons, let's be clear, okay? So often people, when they want to talk about the existence of God, will start off with a very thin conception, but then it turns out that actually what they're really committed to is a much thicker conception in which God is good and praiseworthy and deserving of our gratitude and worship and so on. And these are very different conceptions of God, obviously. And it seems that you really just want to focus on the very thin conception of God.
No, you reject all God concepts. Is that correct?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, if you want to define God as...
So then you're not an atheist, then you just disbelieve in some gods, okay? Isn't atheism the denial of all God concepts?
Well, it's the denial of the existence of gods, not concepts.
Well, that's what I'm referring to, okay? So do you deny that what is fundamental and ultimate to all possibility is a mind, God? Do you deny that?
I'm not even sure I understand what you're what that means. Do I deny?
Do you deny that what is ultimate and fundamental and the source of all possibility and impossibility, and that it is a mind, do you deny that that exists?
I don't.
If you're a strong atheist, then you would deny that.
No, not necessarily. You might say atheists sometimes say that by saying there's no so and so, what they mean is I can't even make any sense of the idea.
So are you a theological non-cognitivist?
So if you were to say there's a round square in the jungles of Brazil somewhere, I would certainly say there's no such thing. But by that, I wouldn't be saying yes, that's this claim that there is so and so is false. I would be saying it makes no sense to talk about such a thing. So there are different kinds of atheists. Some deny the existence of something, say, oh no, the idea makes sense, but actually there isn't a so and so like that. And then others.
I'm not hearing a clear answer to my question.
Well, that's because your question is not clear. That's my point.
My question, in all due respect, I think was absolutely clear. Do you?
No, I don't really. I'm going to have to probably.
What is unclear about asking you about what is fundamentally ultimate and the source of all possibility, and that it is a mind? What is unclear about that?
Well, even what is fundamentally ultimate is extremely slippery. I'm not entirely sure I understand.
Ultimate just simply means it is the source of all possibility and impossibility, the ground of all being, and that it's a mind. Do you deny that that exists?
I'm not sure that there is a source of all possibility. I'm not entirely sure what possibilities having sources even.
Okay. Do you deny that that exists?
Why there would
Do you deny that that exists?
This seems to be a sort of script that you're working with, like
if you want to move
like
on.
a double glazing salesman. You're working with a script. Why don't you just read out the script and let's see where it goes? Suppose I say, yeah, okay, I don't believe in your God, whatever it is. I can't quite get a grip on it. But
you're not addressing my question. You're giving me a slippery response. I asked you a legitimate question. Do you deny that there is anything that is ultimate, the source of all possibility, and that it is a mind? Do you deny that such a being exists?
I'm not entirely sure what it is that I'm supposed to be denying there.
Okay, a being that is ultimate and the source of all possibility, and that it is a mind.
Saying the words over and over again doesn't make it any clearer.
Well, what is unclear about that?
Well, words like ultimate are extremely slippery words.
What's slippery about it? It's the source of all possibility.
The source of all possibility. What does that even mean? I don't know.
It means that for any any dependent state of affairs, it derives and depends on what would be unconditionally non-dependent, absolute, and ultimate. It's a simple question. I ask this question day in and day out, every single day for years, and most of my atheist interlocutors don't have trouble answering the simple question.
Well, maybe they're not professional philosophers that have spent a career thinking about and using this kind of language and realizing just how slippery.
So do you believe such a being exists, or do you deny it?
Let's say, for the sake of argument, that I deny such a being exists.
Good. On what grounds do you deny that?
On what grounds do I deny that such a being exists? Well, partly because I can't make sense of it. I'm struggling to get a grip on what it is that I'm supposed to be talking about.
How does it follow that because you don't understand it, it therefore doesn't exist?
Well,
there are plenty of things I don't understand that exist.
No, but if the reason that I can't understand it is that it involves some kind of conceptual muddle or confusion, and that really sounds like it does to me, then it is reasonable to conclude that there's no such thing. So if for example,
on what grounds?
If somebody says, I've discovered a round square in Brazil, we're not going to be mounting a very expensive expedition to Brazil to see if they've actually discovered such a thing. We know in advance.
Is there
thing, because let me finish. because those concepts put together in that kind of way, they just don't work. You're not really succeeding in describing some genuine possibility that we need to go out.
You haven't shown what I've asked you is not coherent. I simply said, do you deny that there is an eternal being who is a creator and the source of all possibility? Do you deny, and everything else derives and depends upon that? Do you deny that that exists?
An eternal being, it's a necessary being.
It's ultimate. It's unconditionally absolute, and it is the source of all possibility, and it's a mind. Do you deny that? If you're a strong atheist, then you would deny all gods, including that. Do you deny that?
Yeah, I'm very skeptical about there being any kind of.
No, do you deny that it exists?
Yeah, you won't really let me say anything, will you? I'm very skeptical about the idea that there's any kind of necessary being at all.
Do you deny that it exists?
Yeah, if I'm skeptical about it, then yeah, I'm saying I'm not sure.
I didn't ask if you're skeptical. I said, do you deny that it exists?
Do I deny that there's a necessary being? It seems to me highly unlikely. Yeah, I don't assign that.
I didn't ask you if it was likely. I said, do you deny that it exists?
Yeah, I think it's unreasonable to believe that there's such a being, probably.
Okay, so it does not exist?
In my opinion, yeah.
Okay, and what is your line of reasoning or argument that it does not exist?
Well, there would be a whole lot of arguments you could raise, and they're not
Could you
really
give me one?
They're not really arguments that I've spent much time on, because I've tended to focus on the kind of God that is worthy of our praise. But you're not interested.
Can you tell me why that God does not exist, sir?
Well, I'm explaining why I don't normally bother focusing on that kind of God.
Okay,
Most people, including most Christians, don't believe in a God that's just like that. They believe in something much, much richer.
Okay, you're dodging the question.
No. I'm explaining, first of all, what the importance of taking a step back and looking at the bigger question is. Usually, when people are discussing God, they're discussing something that is worthy of our praise and gratitude.
I'm not talking about that right now, sir.
No, but you will be. Later on, you will be, and that's why what I'm saying now is relevant. Most of the objections that I focused on in terms of believing in God focus on the kind of God that you do believe in, but you don't want to talk about now because you want to avoid those objections, and you're going to narrow down and whittle down onto something that's much thinner in order to try and give me as hard a time as you possibly can, and to get yourself entirely off the hook so far as these other objections are concerned. That is the game that you're playing right now, and we both know that. Now, I'm willing to play the game, but I want you to understand, and everyone listening to understand, that that is the game that you're playing, and I'm just going to play along with you if you wish.
I think actually it's probably best that we move along.
You haven't.
Sorry, I think we're actually just going to move on from that. It seems to be not making much progress. But.
All right, I had a.
We could get into all of the different. I mean, there's a whole list of things there: an eternal being, presumably a necessary being that is the ground of all possibilities. Each one of those claims needs unpacking, and we need to get much clearer about what it is that we're talking about. And that's what this rhetorical strategy is depending on. Most people are going to struggle terribly because these are very deep, complicated philosophical issues, and the language is extremely vague, and it's hard to know exactly what it even means. And by pressing the question and using that kind of language, you create the impression that somebody is out of their depth, is struggling to deal, and that's the impression that apologists like to give and generate about their opponents. But it's a very, it's a strategy. We could have an honest conversation about all of this stuff that's being raised here, but this is not an honest conversation. It's a rhetorical approach.
So yeah, I had a question, if that's fine, Detroyer.
Yeah, we can move on, and if that's good.
So I hope that experience was not like too disheartening, Dr. Law. I believe you know, he was kind of like interrupting you quite a bit. But yeah, we had a couple of questions. So